Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Sean Lang. I've spent the last several years building and operating a digital agency that's grown past 50 people, and that's taught me a lot about what really matters when things start to get complex. Just a reminder before we get into it that we have a free community over on agencyuplift.co/group. There you'll find free agency resources, templates, frameworks, AI tools, things that I promise will make your agency journey just a little bit easier, if not a lot easier. These are things that I've developed that have helped me over the years, and I really want to help you with them too. So get those over at agencyuplift.co/group. And now we'll get on to the episode. So this is another solo episode. We're going to first start with a bit of story here. So back in my early agency owner days, I, like probably most of you listening, said yes to everything. We would take on any client that would say yes. This usually meant we were working with a lot of local businesses. We were working with them on, at the time, what we called Facebook ads. Now they're Meta ads. That still feels wrong. Facebook ads, Google ads, those were our main things. But if somebody wanted SEO, guess what? We were giving them SEO, even though it wasn't really a core competency. If somebody wanted a new website, we were going to charge them for that new website, and we were going to design them and build them a new website, even though, again, it wasn't a core competency. It was not a focus area of ours. Basically, whenever the client asked for something, client or prospect, we would say, yeah, we can do that. And you know what? We did do it. We figured it out. We made it work, and we had money coming in, and we thought we were growing we were growing, but it wasn't really healthy growth, but we were growing, and it felt like we were doing something big. But we had no filter for the kinds of work that we did, the kinds of clients that we worked with. There were no constraints. There was no strategy around it. No thought about how does this serve the agency long term. So we didn't have any sort of understanding of, what our capacity was as a team. And at the time, it's because it was just two of us, right? So we didn't think that mattered. We had no understanding of what our delivery bandwidth was because, again, our idea around this was, well, we'll make time. We'll make it work. If this thing takes 2 hours, it takes 2 hours. If it takes 10 hours, it takes 10 hours. If I have to go to bed at 3 a.m. tonight to deliver for the client, that's what I'm going to do. So we didn't really necessarily have any idea of what the cost was to fulfill the services. We didn't really care. We just wanted money coming into the agency. And the way that we priced the work was just basically whatever we thought that they would say yes to, which usually meant that we were vastly, vastly undercharging our services. And we were working with a lot of budget clients that honestly didn't need our services, didn't really want our services, but kind of liked the idea of getting into digital marketing. And so we were kind of their first foray in there. So we had no idea around pricing based on margins or how much effort the work was going to be. It was just, how do we get the work? We need the work. We're building an agency. This is what we need. And the thing here that we didn't really understand is it's not just about revenue, it's about profit. Revenue does not equal profit, as we soon started to understand. And one really big thing here that I learned is selling work without understanding the cost is very, very dangerous, and it will make your life very, very difficult. But this for a while actually felt really exciting. This felt great. The agency looked busy from the outside. It felt busy. It felt like there was a lot of momentum. We had revenue coming in, but we were always hovering just around break even. It was kind of like we were living hand to mouth. And in the early days, that's fine, but you can't scale that. What happens if you scale hand to mouth from 2 people to 10 people? Well, now you just have 10 people living hand to mouth and really, really just hoping that this doesn't break. So there was no real financial progress. There's no financial process. And the busyness that we had, it masked our entire lack of profitability. It felt like growth, but nothing was actually growing. Nothing was compounding, right? So the client roster that we ended up with, it was anyone and everyone. Let me just see if I can remember the different types of clients that we had on at the same time. So we were doing lead gen for local service businesses like a home renovation company, a plumbing business, lead gen for a local fitness club. We were doing, e-commerce marketing for a small clothing brand. We were doing e-commerce marketing for a wholesale clothing printer. It was just all across the board. And for these random clients and random industries, we were doing random services. Some of them were, having Facebook ads. Some of them were having Google ads. Some of them we were, trying to do websites for. It was kind of scattered all across. And the scope for every single client, again, was totally different, which again makes it really, really difficult to understand where the boundaries are, know when you actually need to charge more for something, know when you can upsell. If there's no real boundaries, when do you upsell? And in my experience, you don't upsell. You just keep saying yes and you do more work and the client gets more work for you for free. The client loves you for it, but they also are getting trained by you that this work isn't worth anything. So you keep asking and I will keep giving it to you. So we weren't able to standardize anything since there was different deliverables for every single client, different pricing models for every single client, a different set of expectations from every single client, which just once you get to 10 clients, this feels absolutely hectic. This feels like absolute chaos. Every client was basically a custom project. This meant that we had zero leverage as an agency because we couldn't repeat anything, because we couldn't compound on the value we were making and make it a little bit better every single time we did that same thing. So had you asked me any of these questions, I wouldn't have had an answer for you. If you had asked me, hey, Sean, which clients are your most profitable? I wouldn't have known. Which clients are profitable at all? I wouldn't have known. Which ones are break even? Don't know. No idea. Which ones are losing money? Again, like I would have had no idea. The only thing that I sort of understood was whether the agency was profitable overall. And here's the thing. When you lump it in all together, you'll usually see a little bit of profit. And this gives you the incorrect feeling that, okay, we're doing all right. But this is actually a huge blind spot because generally what this means is you have one or two, maybe three really good clients that are hyper profitable for you. But then the majority of that profit is actually making up for all of the money you're losing on the bad clients. But you don't know this because it's a blind spot and you can't fix what you can't see. So things started to change for us when we made the decision to focus on a specific type of client. Now, this was direct to consumer or e-commerce clients. And we were really focusing on generally apparel companies, which this forced us to narrow our service offering because every time we spoke with one of these apparel clients, guess what they wanted? They wanted Facebook ads and Google ads. That's what everybody else in their niche was talking about, how they were scaling. That's what they wanted. And so it really forced us to get much more focused. Suddenly, we weren't offering ad hoc websites and random SEO retainers and stuff like that because nobody wanted it. So we got operationally much more efficient just because we got to cut services that we weren't good at, that we didn't really know very well how to offer, and that our clients didn't want. So the immediate impact here was we had more predictability. There was more consistency. Now, when we focused our services, this meant that we had repeatable delivery. So the work was better. And suddenly when your work is better, people start to take notice. You start to get testimonials and referrals. When you have similar clients, you have similar problems, which means that you have very similar solutions. So you generally always have a very good idea of what the solution is going to be to their problem, which means it's much easier to scope the work, to price the work, and to deliver it consistently. Now, you didn't start an agency to do custom stuff all the time. I mean, maybe you did. And if so, that's not really what the agency model is good for. The agency model is good for creating predictability, and that is the foundation of profit. So once we created this predictability, it allowed us to actually start tracking profit per client. And that's something I really want to walk you guys through how to do. We started measuring the revenue per client, then the cost to service every single client, which gave us clear visibility into the margins per client. So this actually allowed us to see which clients were driving profit for us and which clients were actually draining profit for us. So we discovered that a meaningful percentage of our clients were not profitable. And a handful of them were actually costing the agency money to work with. And that was really, really difficult to sort of come to grips with because that meant that we needed to make a decision. And none of this was obvious before tracking. So some good clients, you really have to understand some good clients are actually liabilities if you don't understand the numbers here. And the revenue coming in could actually hide the very, very bad economics of these clients. So the hard decision that we had to make, that you will have to make, is we slowly began releasing and letting go of these unprofitable clients. It was emotionally difficult because we were really afraid of losing that revenue. And we had this mindset that, you know, if we lose these clients, where are the other clients going to come from? It was so hard to find these clients. There's just not many clients out there, which, spoiler alert, that's bullshit. There are so many clients out there. It's a blue ocean in terms of people who want to hire agencies. It's a red ocean in terms of who you're competing with, but that's another conversation entirely. But letting go of these unprofitable clients, even though you know it's the right thing to do, it can feel like you're shrinking. It can feel like you're stepping back. But what it actually does is it makes room for better clients. It frees up your capacity. It makes you able to take on better fit clients. It makes you able to actually charge appropriately and deliver more efficiently. It makes you able to just do better work in general. And I mean, I correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't start an agency to deliver subpar work to people, right? And if you did, turn this podcast off. This is not for you and get the hell out of here. But I know that's none of you, right? Growth doesn't always come from just adding more. It actually comes from removing the wrong things and just making space, the space that you already have for the right things. So after you prune these clients, after you cull the herd, as it were, you'll have higher quality clients. You'll have better margins. You'll have more control. And what we found is that our agency finally became profitable. And this is actually the first time that we started scaling. We went from having a roster of clients. One client was paying us $300 a month. One was paying us $800 a month. One was paying us $1,000 per month. We went from charging chaotically like that and all over the place to now we said we work with direct-to-consumer brands in the apparel space doing, I think, what we said was $1 million or more. And our base fee is $2,500 US. So we were a Canadian agency, so that was already a big step, is just switching to US dollars. But then saying $2,500 a month. And then we waited for everything to catch fire and burn down around us. And you know what happened? In the next 3 months, I think we signed 5, maybe 6 clients at that retainer and realized that we're not charging enough. And then we raised it to $3,000 and so on and so on and so on. So you have to understand that the growth that you're looking for comes from focus, it comes from visibility, and it comes from discipline, not just more clients. More clients is a trap. Better clients is what you want. And so I'm leading into something here, and that is I created a tool first for my coaching clients based on my approach in the agency when we were niching down. And now I've actually made it available to all of you fantastic listeners here. And this is my profit tracker tool. I have it while I'm talking through this podcast episode. I have it up on my screen, and this is something for free. I'm giving it to you for free. You can get it at agencyuplift.co/profit. And it is a profitability dashboard. It is very, very simple because we didn't start agencies because we are financially sophisticated. And some of you are. And if so, fantastic. And maybe you don't need this, but the vast, vast majority of agency owners that I talk to really, really need help in this area. I know that I did, which is why I developed this. It's a very, very simple dashboard where you basically add in every single one of your clients. I'm actually walking through this as I do it. You add in a client, you put in what their name is, you put in what the monthly revenue is. If there is a dedicated team member or a dedicated team cost for this one client, which means that no other clients on in your agency have this cost. It's just maybe there's like one team member that only works on this one client. Then you put whatever their monthly cost is for that client. Same with tool. If there's a specific tool that you use for just this one client, then you're going to assign that. And so you add all of your clients in for the month of, let's say we're recording this in March. So you add all of these in for the month of March. So now you have your entire client roster in, name by name, all of their different monthly revenues, all of their dedicated team costs, their dedicated tool costs. So now you have an idea of revenue and dedicated costs. Then we go to expenses, okay? And now the expenses where you can add a team pool. So you put in all of your team members one by one and what their monthly cost is. And what this does is this will split up the cost of your team members across all of your clients so that you know what, like if you have a media buyer named John and you're paying him $4,500 a month and you have 10 clients and he's on all those 10 clients, then in a very simplistic kind of way, we can say, okay, so we need to pass on 10% of the cost of John, the media buyer, $4,500 per month to every single one of those clients. So now $450 of John's cost gets passed on to these clients. So now we start to see, so this client that I'm charging $600 a month for, I'm only making $150 a month off of because $450 of that $600 is going towards John, the media buyer. And then we also take this approach to tools as well. You got to split the cost of tools across all of your clients. Then you put in the cost of administration and operations, whether that's, payroll, bookkeeping, different automation tools, your project management tool. And then we have your own compensation as well. And then what this allows us to do is we get to map out all of the costs against the individual revenues of your clients so that it gives you a total breakdown. So I can see in my dashboard right now, I've got a bunch of clients here, and one of my clients is at 4.2% margin, which is, it's not in the negative, but it's pretty terrible. But then I have one client that's at 60.4% profitability. That is fantastic. But if I scroll up the list, there's one that's at minus 27.8% because I signed this client early on and I never increased the price, and I just keep throwing my team at this client. This is how agency owners run their finances. This is probably how you run your finances. Basically just add the client to the agency, add the revenue to the bottom line, and say, great, now the agency is making $2,000 more per month, without any sort of thought of, can we actually service this client at the price that we priced this engagement at? So this is the Profit Tracker app. It is absolutely free. Go to agencyuplift.co/profit, create a free account, start adding your client roster and all of your expenses. You can use this to create either just a single snapshot, or you can actually make this part of your monthly workflow. It has the option to copy your monthly roster over to the next month, and then you can just remove clients that dropped off. You can add clients that you've signed since. And when you click into the client, you can also now start to see the monthly revenue trend. If you have 5 months worth of account history for this client, you can see how the revenue tracked, how the profit tracked, how all the different tool costs tracked specifically to this client. But the main thing is now you have visibility. Now you can say, oh, not all clients are created equally. Just because I have a roster of 10 clients doesn't mean that I'm profitable for all 10 clients. In fact, if I'm only profitable for 3 of these clients, I need to take a hard look at the service that I'm delivering as an agency, and I need to be prepared to make some very important decisions. So one more time, guys, that is agencyuplift.co/profit. It is my gift to you. It is free. I hope this was very helpful. I hope you guys will use the tool, and I'll see you in the next episode.